Napoleon Hill asks the devil, who are you and how do you operate in our brain? I am the negative portion of matter, the general of warfare, the unknown in poverty, the anti-injustice, the destroyer of independent thought, the instigator of disappointment. Hey, we're back for Out 2 in Outwitting the Devil. So now where we left off is we want to know what a drifter would look like. Let's be very clear. We all have this inside of us. So the book is to make you aware of certain things or certain habits that we have that are causing us to drift out of our purpose. How to recognize a drifter. Lack of purpose, always trying to get something for nothing, calls out for God at the slightest bit of uncomfortability. So now there's a thing where he says the way to pray is not to beg. Ask and it's already received. So you demand it, you know it's already coming, and you have to be willing to go for it, which is the definiteness of purpose. Not you cry and say, oh my God, I'm having a bad day, make it go away. That's a drifter's mindset. They always take the least resistant path. They play it safe. Spend all their earnings on things. You know, like when we have money and we're just dying to get rid of it. That. If they have credit, they use it all as well. A lot of times they're sick. Lack of enthusiasm. They never take initiation. Ill-tempered, lack of control. Opinions, but lack of knowledge. They refuse to use their mind. So the thing is, if you drift too long, it becomes a hypnotic rhythm. Now, what is that, right? A hypnotic rhythm is when you're doing something for so long, you get stuck. That's like, I did this. I don't know if anybody else does this, but you know how you take a certain route to work and you're driving, right? You get to work. Your day's off. If you hit that same route, sometimes absent-mindedly, you start driving to work and you're like, well, what the heck where am I going? That is your body on autopilot, something like what the hypnotic rhythm is. Or like an older person might say, I'm too old to change. So hypnotic rhythm, and it's gonna happen regardless whether you're drifting or you're a non-drifter. If you're a non-drifter, that's like the saying says, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Whatever you're doing, it just modifies and it compounds over a period of time to the point where you're on autopilot. So if you allow negative things to always fester and you always have excuses, you just grow with that. Now, he always says a drifter can be broken by the will to want to change. It's funny because Napoleon Hill asks, well, what happened to me? What caused me to stop drifting? He said, well, you found the greatest love that you were looking for. So it was a woman that empowered him. They were a mastermind couple. She had his back. She gave him the ultimate support. They had great backbone and communication. They became a mastermind. It's a great thing to have that support. So Napoleon Hill acts like it's like the Bible. The Bible says, 2 or more meet together and ask me for anything. In my name, so shall it be granted. Well, the devil says exactly that. Let's talk about the non-drifters. So the non-drifter, he takes life on his terms. He does his own thinking. He has a definiteness of goals. He renders service first before he receives anything else. He budgets his time. Time was another big one. No substitutions. So if he said he wants this, so shall it be. He didn't take something that looked like it, but wasn't. Because that's another thing that can lead to misery. Because if you sacrifice something that you really don't want to sacrifice, it can lead to misery. And it also says right after that, never accept what you don't want. So life is going to give you stuff, whether you want it or not. He's saying, don't accept what you don't want. Unacceptable. That's like when people go in for an interview and they go, I can either be a supervisor, but I won't be anything else. And usually they become a supervisor. So they're saying that life is going to throw you stuff. You can just refuse to accept it. The 7 principles humans should follow to freedom. Number 1, the definiteness of purpose. Knowing exactly what you want, demand it, the willingness to pay life's price for it without accepting substitutes. He repeats himself on stuff he likes. Number 2, the mastery of oneself. Now, for some reason, I don't know if Napoleon was hungry when he wrote this, but he talks a lot about food. I'm really joking on that part, but I guess it was just like one of the most important things. He said, without controlling food, you're taking in junk. You're giving your brain, you're feeding your body poison, which leads into your brain. So you're unable to function the correct way that you're supposed to. They said, all that junk is worse than sewage because it gets backed up and it leads to constipation. Your body stops acting the way it's supposed to act and it leads to sickness. Again, this book was written in 1930. You got to master sex. Sex is meant for a good thing. It motivates, it sharpens the imagination, it helps you pursue a purpose. It gives you immunity towards discouragement. It makes winners not quit because you know they got to be all they could be. No. So Napoleon Hill is like, well, there's a lot of stipulation with sex being too vulgar and etc. And he said, yeah, well, that's why you have to master control. Too much sex is a bad thing. You lose control. It was like example, like look at nature. Everything creates. So you're not going against human nature. Too much sex will have it control your life and you become a drifter, which you go back in his box. Also, he says, as far as control, loosely organized opinions. You're like a grasshopper. You got all these ideas and you jump from one thing to another and you never complete one or the other. Talk too much. It's like you have an ego and you got something to prove and you give other people your ideas. It gets stolen from you. Sometimes you miss out on an opportunity when you don't listen. Number 3 is learning from adversity. When you mess up, when you lose, when things don't go your way. Failure. It can actually be a good thing. So not all failure is all fun, but there's a lesson in every time you fail. It gives you experience, you know? Now, why he said failure could be a good thing, a lot of times failure will throw you the heck out of the hypnotic rhythm. And that's a really good thing. So that's like you going day-to-day life. And before you know it, you're sitting there and you're in a trance. Work this, that, this, that, this, that. And every once in a while, something comes in and it just says, knocks the heck out of you. Throws you off. But then you're like, hold up. I was asleep at the wheel. What the heck is going on in my life? How did I get here? And then he said, usually you go to inner soul searching. You'll look at yourself. You'll see your programming. And you might decide to work on yourself. If used correctly, it could be a really good thing. The people that are successful had the same amount of failure equivalent to their success. So if they're extremely successful, they probably went through it. Most people quit right before their big break. Number 4, control your environment, your environmental influence. Watch the circle. Watch how people move. After you come to some kind of acknowledgement, you leave your environment if it's toxic, or you make a plan to. The desire to want to move out gets stronger because you know that negativity will hurt your spirit. Number 5, time. Learn how to value your time. Time is like one of the most important things. You cannot get it back. It cannot be bought. Once it's gone, it's gone. Learn how to budget your time. Usually when people are on their deathbed, they never said, I wish I worked harder. They usually say, I wish I had more time. I wish I would have did this. Also, over time, when you start learning things, you get experience. You know, it takes a tree a while to grow. Years. It takes 9 months for a baby. It takes time for wisdom and experience if you're willing to change and work on it. If not, time could be the worst. Number 6 is harmony. Harmony helps anybody. Knowing how other people move, knowing how to be harmonious, your circle, because nature has a way of putting you with things that are around you. You start moving in harmony with the people closest to you, so you want to make sure everything is as harmonious as possible and not toxic. All right, the last one we're going to do is number 7. Caution. Simple as that. He said, don't go through life absent-minded. You have to pay attention to everybody around you. You just can't pick any friends. Any spouse. If you pick the wrong spouse, you end up in a horrible situation. He said an example of a cautionary person is somebody that needs to send a message. When he does that, he hires a person to send a message, but then he hires someone to overlook that messenger, and then he watches both of them. I'm just saying the example. I would like to know your opinion on all of this stuff. If you like what you hear, like, comment, and subscribe, and share. Thank you. Enjoy.